Hey everybody, it's Friday. Are we glad about that? I am, but I'm wondering why. It's not like we've worked all week in the factory. Somehow I think I've exhausted after yesterday. I want to thank you again, all of you who bought books. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was a real exciting day for me, and it's kind of where I want to jump off with my topic today. One of my favorite sayings comes from what we used to refer to as the Dope Fiend Bible, and it's Gibran's The Prophet. And in that, there is a woman who says, "Speak to us on children." And the text goes on to say, "Your children are not your children. They come through you, but they do not belong to you." And that really struck me when I was raising my daughter, and I remember giving her what we used to call a precious box, and it was a kind of a keepsake box, and it had an engravable, I think it was brass, who knows, tin plate on the top, and I gave it to her and said her name, loaned to me, loaned to us really, on her birthday by God. And I really believe that the children come through us, but they don't belong to us. And they each have their own journey. Now, that's not an easy thing to take into consideration when you see them sometimes in pain. And I know with my own self, I wanted to wrap my daughter in a bubble so that she would never feel anything but joy. And I would make sure that I walked in front of her and to the sides, being Wonder Woman, to make sure that nobody ever hurt her feelings or cried. And we all know that may be what we'd like to do with our children, but it's impossible. They have their own journeys. So I say all that because in this book that the chapter that I wrote talks about some of my life, and there was painful stuff that I had to go through, painful stuff in childhood and painful stuff throughout my life, and yet it sounds really cliche to say, well, that's who made me. It helped shape me into what I am. But that's not really what I believe anymore. It's like that stuff happened to me, yes, and I had to work through it to get past carrying the pain. But isn't it interesting how we carry pain, but we don't always remember and carry the good stuff? It's like, oh yeah, I can say, yeah, I remember in the third grade, the teacher wouldn't let me carry the flag and whatever, and I was scarred for life. And yet we don't remember that, yeah, in the third grade I got something wonderful, and I carry that with me too. It's just that pain just seems to be 10 times heavier than the joy. And until we let go of some of it and work through it, we can't carry even the joy. We end up putting that down because the load's too heavy. So there are times that we're watching people on their journeys, children especially, and know that they have to go through whatever it is they're going through. And it doesn't get any easier, I don't think, if you see your adult child going through something that you wish you could keep them from. But sometimes we overuse the word enabling. And there's a woman that I know that hated the word enabling, and she has changed it to thinking in terms of limiting. So every time she would think, somebody would say, well, if you do that, you're enabling them, she would substitute that and say, well, if I do that, I'm limiting them. And that's what I want to convey more than anything. If somebody had been able to come in and scoop me up so that I didn't experience any of the pain that I had, they would have limited me. It wouldn't have been helpful. It would have limited me. Maybe I would have become so dependent upon them that I wouldn't have reached for deeper or more. I know I wouldn't have reached for a God that I came to understand, because I would have made them my God. So when you're in there running around somebody with a pillow under their ass, you're keeping them from the very pain that might cause them to get on the trajectory of their own soul's purpose. If we keep running around and propping people up that we love, we keep them from their own journey that they agreed to long before they got here. And somebody would have robbed me of my experience, and I would not have written the story that I wrote, and I wouldn't have reached as many people. The noise is my cats. They sleep all day and they wake up right here, and then they decide they're going to star in a very passive-aggressive role. Cats, your name are passive-aggressive. Anyway, so back to my point. It's supposed to be absolutely fabulous and turn your whole life around. By limiting the pain, the joy, whatever the other person is going through, you keep them from their original path that they agreed to. And it just might be that that's something that their journey, that was part of their journey and part of what they were supposed to be saying to the world and doing for the world. And so if somebody had protected me, I wouldn't have written that story. And I know that somebody who has that book is either going to be affected by it, or they're going to say, look, I want to give this book to so-and-so because I think this would help them. So the pain that I went through, I don't carry that pain anymore. I can talk about it, I can write about it, I can use my experience to give somebody else strength and hope. That's a pet peeve of mine in the program. People say, well, I'm supposed to share my experience, strength, and hope. No, I share my experience. And I hope that you can get some strength and some hope from it. And that's what I did in this book. So if you're in a dilemma about helping somebody and you just don't want to see them in that kind of pain, ask yourself, am I getting in the way of their soul's purpose? Am I getting in the way of my soul's purpose? So that's kind of heavy for a Friday afternoon, but it comes out of that book. I'm able to say today, this happened, that happened, this happened, that happened. And whatever I was carrying around it, I don't carry anymore. So I'm going to leave you with that and go strangle these cats. That's what I'm going to do. But I'm going to strangle them in a very spiritual way. Bye. Have a good weekend. I love you. And guess what? There's not a damn thing you can do about it. My loving you ain't your business. Bye.